provided me an introduction. After a busy spring, John Katricak is back with his much anticipated, or at least much canceled, Project 9 speech. The title of the speech is Email Etiquette, and John swears he had the idea for this topic long before Terrell used it for an Education Master speech. The speech time is 5 to 7 minutes, and again the title is Email Etiquette. Please welcome John Katricak.
Hello, Toastmasters. Megan. Email is obviously something we all use, work, personal, or even Toastmasters. But obviously there are right ways and wrong ways to use it. And today I'm going to go through the who's, what's, when's, where's, why's, and how's of email etiquette. We'll start with the who, and we'll talk about who we're going to involve in our emails. So, as a sender, obviously you don't want to include too many people. I think Carol use the example that you don't really need to reply to the whole group to say, yes, I'm going to be video master today. Another example is if you're asking somebody for an answer to something, try to avoid sending it to multiple people, because then they're just going to sit there and assume that the other person's going to answer it. On the other hand, as a recipient, if you do get one of those emails and you see that you're one of 3 people, obviously you can check to make sure nobody else is working on it, but also that's one case where you do want to reply all, so the other person that was asked knows that this is taken care of. You don't need to work on it. Don't waste your time. It's done. Now for the what's, I'm going to focus on subject lines. You of course want a descriptive subject line. Not just hi or hey there or from me. And that way, not only does the person know what you're talking about right now, but they can also search through their emails later on and find, okay, yeah, that's the one I need to look at now, reference now to do what I'm working on. Another thing with the subject is not to use the little important exclamation mark. If you mark all your emails as important, it's a story of the boy who cried wolf, where people are going to start ignoring you. Or not that I would admit to doing this, but you see something more important, you say, yeah, right, and I'm going to purposely put that one off. Another thing with subject lines, I've seen Kelly do a good job with this, is if you need somebody to respond quickly, or if you need action required, put it right in there, a subject line. That's very useful. As far as when's go, you need to understand that email is not an immediate forms of communication. So if you send out an email and somebody doesn't reply within 5 seconds, I've had this happen to me, don't pick up the phone and say, hey, did you get this email I just sent? Yeah, I did, but if you needed an immediate response, you should have just called me in the first place or come to visit. At the same time, if you're receiving an email, don't put it off too long. A good rule of thumb I've heard is 1 to 2 business days. That's the whens. Next is the wheres. For the wheres, I'm going to speak about. For the wheres and the whys, I'm going to cheat a little, and I'm going to talk about when is not the right time, or where is not the right time for email. And again, if you need an immediate response, don't use email. Give that person a call, or walk down to their desk and talk to them. Hopefully they're not busy. Another time to avoid email, or another time when you don't want to use email, that's not the right way of putting it, but don't use email to avoid personal contact. So if you've got an important customer and they're expecting a call back and you don't really feel like talking to them, don't email them to avoid the situation. Just, yeah, it hurts, I've been there, make the call. Another time when you don't want to use email is when you're having trouble expressing yourself. I've sat there and stared at the cursor for a good 45 minutes, trying to figure out how to word things, and that's not a good situation. I mean, if you can't say it in an email, don't say it in an email. Pick up the phone, give the person a call. You can word things better that way and have that back and forth. That's one thing that email is not always the best thing about. If you need a back and forth, constant feedback and emotions and sensing what the person isn't understanding, email is not the best for that, so you can use another form of message. Another time you want to avoid email is, another thing to keep in consideration when it comes to whether or not to use email, is that email isn't private. So obviously you want to watch what you say. Not only can be forwarded to somebody either intentionally or unintentionally, and there's your bad comment about the customer in their plain sight. Email can also be intercepted. It's just passed in plain text over the internet, unless you have some encryption software. But I mean, if you don't, you can send your bank account number, and somebody could be in the middle, and there it is in plain sight. Now they have your bank account number. Finally, the hows. The hows, and I talked about some tips of how to write your email. So you want to be informal. Email is meant to be informal, but not too informal. And I don't know if informal is really the right word. I kept seeing that, but I think maybe personable is a better word. So you want to be friendly, but not maybe keep it light on the abbreviations and smiley faces and things like that. At the same time, you want to be careful. You want to avoid the smiley faces, but at the same time, maybe you can throw it out every once in a while, because you can't express emotion over email. So be careful what you say, because it can be misinterpreted. You can be joking and not pick it up. But at the same time, on the recipient side, if you see something and it makes you angry because you think the person's picking on you or whatever, stop, take a second, and say, assume the best in the person. I guess is the best way to put it. Assume the best in the person. Assume they were just joking. Don't get angry with them. Maybe just take a step back and, again, assume the best intentions. Finally, in the hows, keep it short. Keep it easy to understand. Keep short sentences. I find myself going back and breaking sentences. I have a tendency to do run-on sentences with lots of commas. I find myself going back to break those up into shorter sentences. So short sentences, short paragraphs, short emails. Sure, you can have a lot of information to get across, but if somebody opens their email and sees something this long, they're either going to only skim it, maybe just read this much, or not read it all, and then they're calling you to ask you the same questions you already answered in email. So again, if you follow these 6 who's, what, when, where, why, and how email etiquette, you will find yourself to be a more efficient communicator. I'm Toastmaster.